We understand that for so many with ties to Myanmar, these past few years of conflict have left deep scars. It's more than understandable that many are now struggling with mental health and seeking balance in the face of unimaginable loss, pain, and violence. These challenges weigh heavily, yet they're also a testament to the human capacity to endure. To all those now listening who carry these burdens, we extend our heartfelt well wishes. May you find moments of peace amidst the chaos, strength to navigate the hardships, and hope to sustain you through the darkest times. You are not alone, and we stand with you in solidarity and compassion. Rick, thank you so much for joining us for a second appearance on Insight Myanmar podcast. And I'd like to invite you to share a bit fuller about your background so listeners have a better idea of where you're coming from and responding to the questions that we'll be posing here.
Sure. Well, first of all, I feel a deep moral commitment to the people of Myanmar. And I feel outraged at the military treatment of its own citizens and really wish everyone there the best. And I just think that it's important for the world to bear witness to what's happening there to so many innocent people with so much injustice and to do what we can to help. That's like part one. Part two, I'm a Buddhist, and a lot of my teachers trained in Myanmar. And I have friends and colleagues who have monastics, bhikkhunis and bhikkhus who have fled the country ahead of oppression there. So I care about things from that Buddhist perspective. And then last, I also care about what's happening there from the standpoint of just care and concern for humanity in general. There's so much unnecessary suffering, and we are all called to do what we can based on compassion to relieve it.
Thank you for that. And Brang Nan, before we get into the questions I know you've prepared reflecting the issues that you and so many around you have gone into, I'd like to invite you to share about yourself and your background as far as you're comfortable. And also just to add to listeners and to Rick that we're speaking to you actually from Myanmar. So you're not speaking to us from a place of safety right now. You've been living in a country of conflict for all of these years. And so with those security concerns that come with them, I'd like to invite you to share however you feel safe about yourself and your background there.
Thank you. First of all, thanks for having me here. And it's an honor to talk to someone like Rick and Inside Myanmar podcast, who's been doing great things since the coup. I would say that I've been a storyteller for the past decade or so. I have had the fortune and the privilege to actually step outside of the country to study abroad, and then come back to this beautiful country of ours to do something good when we were going through what we call a transitional period. And then witnessing what has happened in the past couple of years since 2021, and I think Rick said the key word a witness. I am still inside the country, but I'm not in a active conflict zone. So I still feel a little bit of privilege being alive and being able to witness, and also to testify of our struggle and what we're going through, and to be a witness. I think so. For the past couple of months, I've been reconnecting with friends that had to leave the country because of the conflict, basically soon after the coup. And one of the recurring theme that we all feel as survivors so far of this conflict is, of course, the survivor's guilt. I can remember, when the protest started in 2021, there's a sense of unity and a sense of togetherness that I have never ever experienced in my life, and that almost felt like a high. That's almost, a high dose of like a drug. And talking to my friends in the past couple of months, like 2021 was the high, and then 2022 was, we almost felt like a withdrawal from that, because it became unsafe to talk about these issues publicly. We are constantly like ruled by fear in our daily life, and that kind of like puts us in little boxes of our own, feeling isolated from each other. So I guess we can start from there. This feeling of isolation and that fear puts us into, even though if I walk out into the street now, 8 out of the 10 people that I see are on our side, but there's a hesitancy to connect, and talk about anything that's, quote unquote political. Yeah. So we've been kind of like not being able to talk about the things that hurt us, in openly, in the past couple of years since the coup.
If I could jump in, it is an honor for me as well to talk with both of you about such an important issue, and to acknowledge that I am talking with you here from my very comfortable home in a upper middle class neighborhood north of San Francisco. And even though America clearly has some political troubles, they're nothing like the troubles experienced by so many people in the world. Ukraine, Gaza, Myanmar, Sudan, elsewhere. So I feel humble and respectful as I hear about what your own direct lived experience is. And I would say also that it's a particular tragedy that, in addition to having to experience the stresses and the traumas and the vicarious trauma based on concern for people that are themselves being directly harmed, it's particularly bad to not be able to talk about it based on a lack of trust, really, in those you might be speaking with. We are profoundly social mammals. We evolved in small bands, and no one should suffer alone. And that's one of the sad facts of the current situation, that you really don't know exactly who you can talk with, right? And that makes it even harder to heal.
Yeah, I think, including me and a lot of friends that I have, since the coup, I think the main thing that we suffer is, loss, loss in terms of, literally death of people that we know and we love,
Yeah.
and also the kind of symbolic death of the country. So I think one of the biggest thing that we've been dealing with since the coup is like we've been grieving these losses, but also, that in and of itself is already tough enough. but at the same time, there's a sense of like the bigger picture of, mm, you see people who are suffering even more than you all over the place, and the question of like, how do we grieve properly when everyone around you is suffering?
Yeah.
I think it made it quite hard for us to actually feel our feelings, basically, whether it's grief or joy. How can one be happy in such a sad state? What's an appropriate way to celebrate small moments of joy,
Yeah.
within the context of the horror that is going on throughout the country, of like, villages being burned,
Yes.
and unspeakable horror. There are people being burned alive, and and I think for myself too, especially in like 2022, 2023, there was a sense of like, feeling my own pain is insignificant compared to the larger conflict. And I think that's helped, that kind of like hinder us from actually feeling those feelings, and then trying to heal from that. It's extremely difficult, and also at the same time, we have a sense of like duty to keep going, to keep fighting for this revolution, to be actively involved in it. And so I think from talking to my friends in the past couple of months, like we are all kind of like going through a very similar thing of finding it really hard to process these emotions, whether it's positive or negative.
If I could ask you, what tools do you draw upon from the Buddhist tradition, particularly early Buddhism, which is the primary form of Buddhism practiced in Myanmar? What tools do you use from the Dharma to help yourself with these very, very powerful, painful feelings?
Honestly, I think in the thick of it, I couldn't find anything to help me, to be honest. And like, feeling clouded by these intense kind of emotion. And then this is something I want to talk to you about as well, is that like I've also noticed that like we kind of go into this like numbing process, because it's easier and it's accessible. And I see people becoming addicted to substances as a way of coping, and that's just not in my own generation, not just my own generation, but like I'm starting to realize that the generation that came before me, who had witnessed a different revolution back in 88 or 96 or 2007, like all these undigested trauma are being coped with alcohol or other substances. So I think in the thick of it, it's really hard for us to find a way out. I think I have recently kind of started to crawl back out of it, because I'm a storyteller. I'm trying to build a narrative and try to understand. That kind of process made me look at a lot of the pain directly, stare at it directly, and that kind of helped me to come out of it. But in the thick of it, man, I think we were all just like trying to escape,
Yeah, I would say, let's see, not a neurologist. I'm not a physician. I'm a clinical psychologist with a lot of background in the brain, in the nervous system, certainly. And so from that perspective, I'm also someone who has never, ever, ever been through what you and your, fellow people in Myanmar have gone through. That said, I think about this, for me, one of the most important little sentences in the Pali Canon, the surviving written record of the teachings of the Buddha, is the Buddha's own description of his personal journey, in which he said, painful, racking feelings arose, but they did not invade my mind and remain. And that's a crucial distinction. We can have painful, awful, terrible feelings, but the question becomes, do we let them invade the mind and remain there? And that's where practice lives. And that's why also traditional tools of mindfulness can be really, really helpful. It can feel, I think in the moment sometimes, it's understandable that we're so flooded by outrage or grief or physical pain that all we can do is take the next breath. That's really true. But as soon as we get any kind of breathing room, if you imagine a 0 to 10 scale of pain or suffering, if you're at a 10, all you can do is take the next breath and try not to make things worse. But if things settle down a little bit, a little time passes, you start to find your footing, and what you are experiencing is a 9 rather than a 10. And certainly if it's a 6 or 7, then you have the opportunity to practice with it. And certainly a key tool is mindfulness, and the aspect that's used in some methods, like from Mahasi Sayadaw, of noting. It's interesting that research shows that if people simply name what they're feeling to themselves in a simple word or phrase like anger, helplessness, sorrow, grief, whatever the word is, as soon as you do that, the part of the brain, the executive systems in the prefrontal cortex right behind the forehead become more active. And that gives you a sense of distancing and like brake pads, or buffers from whatever it is that you're experiencing. And it also calms down the amygdala and other reactive centers in the brain. That's a really important tool. And then another one that, as a clinical psychologist, I recognize as extremely useful and is actually not really described in the Buddha Dharma. It's to bring to mind the sense of beings who care about you. Perhaps in Tibetan Buddhism, there's some sense of that with deity figures. Maybe in some of the traditions, perhaps in the Theravada, there's that sense of bringing in spirits or ancestors who care about you. But that felt sense, maybe it's your friends today or your family, others that you're in a movement with. As soon as you start to feel like you're part of a larger cause, you're part of a larger collective, there are people who care about you and that you are worth caring about. That also, in the moment, as you say, in the thick of things, along with mindfulness, can immediately help people feel better. And there's good research about, the effectiveness of both of those methods. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, being able to identify what you're feeling and then being able to talk about them is really important. I think it's really
to
important
yourself,
to
even talk about it to yourself.
Yeah. Yes, I think so. I think like for myself, there's a part where I was thinking recently about because I study philosophy in college, and the question of what is it that you need to do, to live a good life, and I figured, you answer that question by asking yourself questions, right? In a Socratic way, and of course, that you ask yourself, what are you doing for yourself, and that the answer that you give to that question leads you towards a path where you can live a meaningful life, then the question becomes, what are you doing for your family? Then it zooms out a little bit further. What are you doing for your community? And I feel like in a normal circumstances, if you can have a solid answer to those three, I think you're quite happy. You're quite content with your life. I think for us, as because of what we're going through with the country, we are tasked with another question, which is, what are you doing for your country? And especially for me, I felt after, so during the 2021 protests, we get to be actively involved in it and get a sense of meaning and purpose to our life. But then when they start shooting, and when it becomes dangerous to go out, and then when it becomes unsafe to talk about these things online with your real identity, then you kind of like go inward. And that question like weigh really heavy on all of us. I feel that in a lot of my friends, because I know friends who are very purposeful and very driven, and who can make real changes in a community, but tasked with this heavy question of, what are you doing for your country? And if they can't find a good answer, like, the other three questions seems like they don't matter anymore, So you forgot about your community, you forget about your family, and yourself, that you need to take care of all three even before thinking about trying to take care of a country, which is a very tricky and problematic proposition, as Rick, who lives in US, know, right? You can't. I think part of it is control. Having that lack of control kind of can drive you crazy, I think. And for me, at least, being able to even talk about these things, I think I started going inward. I started with me. Started asking my questions to myself about, like, what am I doing for myself and for my well-being. So I think what you were saying about, like, being mindful about your emotions, and acknowledging them first, and like almost to have a conversation with yourself, because it's harder to have a conversation with someone else, but yeah, I think the practice of meditation, I think, will probably give us time to really be quiet with ourselves, and like really listen to ourselves. I think that that I found quite very helpful in my kind of like coming out of this darkness, or climbing out of this ditch, or but like, I want to know if there's like a, because there are moments of joy and sadness. They can kind of go in and out, right? But I think the key is to maintain a certain level of consistent level of well-being, or contentness, that so that we can actually go on and have impact on our friends, and also our community, and hopefully on our country. If is there any practices and tips and tricks that you would recommend to maintain, like, first to get out of that darkness, but also to maintain a sense of like levity once you are out,
Right. There's so much about this that we could talk about. First, just to kind of summarize what we've said so far, within each person, as soon as you are not completely overwhelmed, right, at a 10, and sometimes we are, when all you can do is take the next breath, within every person is the ability to be mindful of what you're experiencing In other words, to be able to witness it, to step back from it, to hold it with compassion for yourself and with kindness for yourself, with the fundamental sense that you are there for yourself. You care about yourself. In much the same way you would care about your country or you would care about a friend, you can care about yourself inside yourself. And no one can stop you from doing this. We all have the power to doing it, but only we can claim that power. Only we can do it for ourselves. And to be blunt, I think many people are not claiming the power that they actually have inside their own mind when they are no longer completely overwhelmed, to practice inside their mind. And, I've been a therapist and a teacher a really long time. I think I've become more compassionate, but I've also become more direct. And you see this with the Buddha himself, being quite direct with people about, well, I hear you, he says to them. And he essentially then asks them, how are you going to practice with that? How are you going to work with that inside your own mind? So mindfulness definitely. And then second, the heart, having a sense of your own good heart and your own heart-centered connection with others like you who are suffering or allied with you against a cruel and terrible regime. That can make a big difference for people. So then building on that, if I could, I certainly think about the classic balance of compassion and equanimity. And these might seem like fancy words, but no, they're so practical where, we recognize suffering in ourselves and our friends. We open to it, but also we must establish in ourselves a core inside in which, as I said in the beginning, painful feelings, suffering does not invade and remain. That core inside has a sense of stillness in it, balance in it, groundedness in it, perspective in it that is undisturbed. And the two together are really important. It's hard to sustain compassion without equanimity. And equanimity alone is kind of cool, and it needs to be warmed up by compassion, the jewel and the lotus together in the classic image. And related to that, I think about the teachings of Ajahn Chah, who was in Thailand, kind of nearby. And he used a metaphor, and I wonder what you think about this metaphor. So I'll tell you the metaphor. You may know it already. He said, if you want some fruit, you can pick out a good little tree, and you can find a really good place to plant it, and you can plant it carefully, and you can water it, and you can protect it, and some years will go by, and you can, shelter it and treat it really well. And you can do all these things, but you cannot make it give you an apple. You can tend to the causes, but you cannot control the results. And that for me has been a deeply revolutionary and helpful teaching because I want to control the results. I'm in nature. I want to, make things happen, accomplish them. And it's been very useful to realize, no, we are responsible for tending to the causes, but we are not responsible for the results. And we can be at peace about the results, whatever they are, while also taking responsibility for doing whatever is inside our own power. So I think about individuals who cannot themselves make their country be at peace. They cannot themselves defeat the military junta. They can't do that. But what they can do in their own small circle is be kind today, do their job today, do less harm today, become a little wiser and a little stronger inside themselves today. And these are the ways that they can water the fruit tree. And when many, many people do that, countries transform. Sooner or later, the military will be gone. It will be gone. And your country will remain. And all those seemingly small efforts made by millions of people to water their own fruit trees, to take care of their own gardens, those efforts will bear fruit in the country as a whole. What do you think?
Yeah, what you just said resonate with me a lot.
Yeah.
Because I think I mean, first and foremost of taking care of yourself is,
Yeah.
you said, only you can do it. I think I think that's the blunt truth, right? You can't have the power if you wanted to, and it's there, and you alone can do it, and you have to do it yourself. I think in a way gives you responsibility, but also gives you power
Yeah.
and control.
That's right.
I think having that sense of responsibility and control will actually, I think, we can spread it out from yourself to others, right? Because you were saying about compassion to, mindfulness of your own emotion, but then also transferring that to others through compassion. I think uh, I think within the context of the conflict, I also see on a daily basis of people trying to do the best they can, whether it's outwardly political or not. I think in the past few months, I've been in contact, and I get to interact with people who are restaurant owners, who are taxi drivers, who are musicians, in their own way, trying to survive, but also trying to give back to the small communities that they are in. And I think I I think once you get out of that fog that you keep
Yeah.
yourself in, and open your eyes, you also open yourself to seeing other people who are doing similar things around you. And I think for me that has been very nourishing in terms of healing and recovery from 2022. In the past 2 years, I've lost my father. I've lost a mentor all through this conflict, and it certainly um, uh, puts you in a place where you just want to shut the door and not get out.
Yeah.
Um, but I think, I think the growing of the tree, planting something and tending to it, and then being okay with what comes out of it. Also, I think it's a very helpful metaphor. One thing that I've noticed also, Rick, is that because I'm a storyteller, I'm quite open about expressing my emotions, and quite open about talking about my feelings. And I've been doing that with my friends. And one thing that I've noticed is that also, that once you are open to that kind of sharing and being vulnerable, then they also open up, and beautiful things happen from that, exchange of being open with each other. I had a conversation with a taxi driver in his 60s, and this is a complete stranger. This is the first time I was in his taxi, basically.
Yeah.
And conversation started from mortality, about his friends passing away, and his own health, to the health of the country, and then to the struggles that we're going through day by day. And we had an amazing conversation back and forth, these two strangers, mainly because we were open to it. I think going back to the earlier part of our conversation about losing trust between each other because of the fear, I think if we allow ourselves to be a little bit brave, a little bit, open to sharing, then what I've realized is that we're all in the same boat. And what I actually learned at the towards the end of the conversation, which started out quite general, is that we both care deeply about the country and about the future. And we both kind of became friends, actually. What came out of it is like new friendship,
Yeah.
And I've actually been having those experiences like repeatedly, and that felt like, like serendipity in a way, mainly and mainly it came from being vulnerable and being open. Can you talk a little bit about that aspect, if that's makes sense to you?
Well, if I follow you, you yourself are being open and vulnerable, and that invites other people to tell the truth. I think there's a saying in the Christian Bible that the truth shall set us free. And in the Buddhist tradition, certainly, truth is the bedrock foundation of all practice, and ignorance and delusion is the foundation of all suffering. So, yeah, telling the truth and the emotional truth, starting by telling it to yourself. It may not be safe to tell your truth of what it's like to be you and what you've seen and what you care about. It may not be safe in a dictatorship to tell that to other people, but for sure you can tell it to yourself. I mean, that rings really, really true to me. And also, I think this could be a little provocative, but it's something I've observed in many activists. They sometimes think that inner peace is at odds with passion and outrage and motivation to change what is bad. And so they do not value inner peace, and they actually are often very critical of people who seek inner peace because they fear that those people will just want to sit on the couch or, sit in a cave, right, and not really participate. But in fact, inner peace is a great ally to activism because when you're centered and peaceful in your core, you are much more able to be clear-eyed and resilient in the face of difficulty. If you're angry all the time, particularly with a sense of helpless outrage, which many of my friends in America now currently experience, helpless outrage is a really bad combination. And also, if you think about any dictatorship, wants to make people feel helpless. They want to drain people of their strength. And I think the deep roots of inner strength are inner peace. Because if you're not peaceful inside, there's no stable place inside. There's no place where you can actually stand. That is a refuge in which, in which you can take refuge to look out to the world and refuel yourself, heal yourself, nurture yourself, replenish yourself, and then go out. So inner peace. And I think for many people, the opportunity is to value it and to ask oneself, okay, I still need to see what I see and to care about what I care about and plan what I plan. For sure, those three things: see what you see, care about what you care about, and plan what you plan. And also, meanwhile, I value my own inner being and I want to be peaceful inside. And then based on that, then you start thinking about, okay, how do I help myself cultivate inner peace while also being an activist? But if you don't have that value in the first place, that it's good to cultivate inner peace, and in fact, you have the right to cultivate inner peace morally while still caring deeply about injustice, then you won't grow it inside. What do you think about that for yourself and also for your friends?
Yeah, I mean, it rings very true to me, because and I'm glad you have raised this this kind of like the tension between inner peace and activism / passion, because I see that passion in my friends, and I also have seen that passion kind of like run them dry
Mm,
uh, over a long stretch. It's
yeah.
been it's been 3 years since the coup,
Mm,
and it's a long time to constantly be, you know you go to bed with the thought of what can I do,
yeah.
and then you wake up with the thoughts of like what can I do for this country or for the revolution. And as you know, there are things that happen within the context of the conflict that you have very little control over, and that what drives you towards burnout. And I see a lot of burnouts in my friends. So I'm glad you raised this point of like inner peace being actually the foundation that
Yeah.
we can always go back to, so that we can come and rest in a way, and then it gives you a kind of yeah, tranquility, but also a kind of like peaceful energy
Yeah.
to move forward. I think one thing that I notice is that without that without that inner peace, it's kind of hard to figure out what you need to do exactly
Mhm.
also, because with the passion, you end up doing everything, because that's what you think that is need to be done, because there are a lot of things to be done really, in a country like us, which has never been a perfect country to begin with. So there are a lot of things to be done, and with the passion, you end up doing a lot of things. But I think having that stability and having that inner peace, clarity, I would say, um, we can actually focus on things that we can actually do. Um, um,
That's right.
uh, I definitely went through a period of a year and a half of just not having that clarity and not knowing what to do, right? And coming out of that through, being honest with myself and having conversation with myself, is that I've also realized that my role as a storyteller and as a witness is to actually feel the pain of the people around me, and to digest it and make something out of it, and that, yeah, that gives me exactly what I need to, like, give me a direction as to where I need to go. So yeah, I think it rings
That's
true
beautiful.
because,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, because I see a lot of helpless outrage around me as well,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
how how much it hurts people around me, like, frustration after frustrations.
Yeah.
When there's a victory, uh, small victory, we're over the moon,
Mhm.
and if there's a setback, then it
Yeah.
drives you down the whole. It's like, swinging back and forth. So yeah, I'm glad it rings true to me about,
Yeah.
yeah, if we want to build a foundation for a revolution, both
Mhm.
culturally and also, yeah, mentally, we start with ourselves, right?
I think that, yeah, it's beautiful what you're saying. And it reminds me of something I read from an individual who grew up in Haiti some years ago under an extremely brutal dictatorship, the Duvalier father and son. And this man ran away from Haiti at age maybe 20 or 21, went to Canada, worked in a restaurant washing pots, discovered that he was a good writer, and eventually, 30 years later, received this very prestigious literary award from the Paris, the French, I guess, Academy of Letters, etc. So I read a little thing that this individual had to say, and he was commenting on his time as a young man in Haiti, and he said, the dictator wants you to think about them all the time. They don't actually care if you like them. To paraphrase the Buddha here, which he did not say, the dictator wants to invade your mind and remain. And I never forgot reading about that, because I thought about, in my country, Donald Trump really wants everybody talking about him, including all the liberals. He doesn't care. He just wants to be in your mind. He wants to take over there. And I think it's extremely important to be very careful about what we think about all day long, or what we ruminate on. Technically, when we ruminate, we are reinforcing in the brain whatever it is we are ruminating about. And so if we are doing laps around the rumination track with helpless outrage, self-criticism, a sense of despair, perhaps hopelessness, whatever it is, when we go through that over and over again, we reinforce that attitude in ourselves. There's a traditional proverb that the mind takes its shape from what it repeatedly rests upon, such as helpless outrage. And based on modern understandings of neuroplasticity, the brain literally changes its structure and function based on what we repeatedly dwell upon, especially if it's negative. So for me, it's a revolutionary act to get the assholes out of your head, to put it really bluntly. Bad enough that they're in the Capitol, bad enough that they're driving down the road in a tank. Get them out of your head. So that part seems really important to me. And it's an act of autonomy. And in its own way, it's revolutionary. You're not going to let them dominate your mind. And, the other thing that I'm struck by, if I could just add this, is also when we step back and look at history, most people throughout history have lived under the boot of some tyrant. It's been Game of Thrones for about 10,000 years. And that's the truth of things. And yet they managed to make their own individual lives. And the gradual accumulation of their efforts, raising their children, teaching them to read, opening a shop, being a comedian in a nightclub, driving a taxi, telling stories, working as a nurse, all of it, planting a tree, all of it adds up over time to something really, really good. And it's so easy, I think, to overlook the simple efforts that people make each day to make the world a little better. And it reminds me, or the image for me is of a large cloth. Imagine a cloth of some kind, a large fabric. And any individual thread may not seem to matter very much. It's such a small part of the overall cloth. And yet each of those individual threads is important, and it's what makes the cloth. And for me, there's a lot of dignity and self-respect in living your life well locally as much as you can. And that tends to strengthen a country against tyranny and lays more and more of a foundation for a healthy government and a healthy society. And it's what you can do. It's the fruit tree you can water, right? In your own local place. Water that tree of your own family, your neighborhood, your own mind, your relationships. Have fun in your heart, don't let that dictator make you frown all day long.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful what you said. I think in a way, we all have a potential to become something, right? To be someone and to become someone that we're supposed to be, despite these assholes. It's an act of resistance. I think that's what you're saying.
That's right. Really well said. That's beautiful. Right. If I may use a phrase, fuck them. Live well meanwhile. Live well meanwhile, as best you can, while still trying to make a better world.
Yeah, I think, yeah, at the same time, of course, I myself, I acknowledge the privilege that I have in order to not be in that pain level 10, to actually reflect and also to think all these through, um, and to talk to somebody like you. um, Before I talked to you, I actually watched your TED talk that you gave a few years ago.
Long time ago.
Long time ago. But I also like, there's a part where you talk about practice of focusing on something positive,
Yeah.
and then building that, because I think you tied it also into the neuroplasticity that you're talking about.
That's right.
So maybe tell us a little bit about that practice,
Sure.
because I feel like it's something we can do every day, as a reminder to ourselves, and also to almost like condition our brains, right? To be in a certain mood. So yeah, please share with us.
Thank you. And if it's all right, I would happily share about this. And
No
I want to say,
worries.
yeah, it's been such a beautiful thing, Brang, to talk with you. Well,
Same.
yeah, a simple question. Well, I'll do it like this. Okay. So I think there are 4 questions that are really, really helpful for a person. First question is, what's the challenge? Especially as you experience it inside yourself. So you might say, what's the challenge? And the answer is, well, a military dictatorship has taken over my country and is killing and mistreating millions of people. Okay, how are you experiencing that? What's the challenge inside yourself with that? Well, let's say, I feel helpless and angry and despairing and so sad. All right, that's real. That's where we start. So that's the first question. What's the challenge? And you can apply this to all kinds of things. You could apply it to a relationship issue, a physical illness, a parent who's getting old, maybe sick, maybe dying, any kind of challenge. All right. Then the second question is the most important question. What, if it were more present inside you, would really help? What attitude, what emotion, what motivation, what understanding, what habits, what skills inside you would really help? So, for example, if a person, let's suppose, feels really helpless about large scale societal systemic forces like a military dictatorship, they feel helpless. That's a challenge. Well, it would really help to have experiences of not feeling helpless. And it would really help to build up the attitude inside and the repeated experience inside that you are someone who can make things happen. You're not a nail, you're a hammer in a good sense, not violent, but in a good sense, going through life. That would really help you. So you're seeing the basic idea here that you are matching the medicine to the diagnosis. What is the challenge? And then the question is, what if it were more present inside you would really help? And you can do this with other people too, like children or friends or clients or patients and so on. Third question, how can you experience that which would really help? Because that's the beginning of change. That's the beginning of positive change inside ourselves. So we have to experience whatever we want to grow. So let's suppose that you realize, okay, I need to experience more of a sense of agency, efficacy. In other words, that I'm someone who can make things happen. I'm not, I may be helpless over there, but I'm not helpless over here. And so I need to experience more of that. So I'm going to look for opportunities to notice when I'm already making things happen. I am already making choices about what I eat or what I wear today or whether I say something or not say something. I am someone who has power in certain areas, and I'm going to experience that. Okay. And then the fourth question is, how could you take in those good experiences of what you want to grow? How could you slow down, open to these experiences in your body, keep the neurons firing together so they have a chance to start wiring together, and appreciate and receive into yourself good experiences of whatever you want to grow? This is a fundamental process, and those four questions give people a clear roadmap every day to grow the
Right.
good inside. And then,
Right.
and I think it's very, very helpful to be clear about what is it specifically that you are trying to develop in yourself. I mean, if people are, serious about Buddhist practice, not everybody is, even in a Buddhist country, there are clear things to develop inside in the Eightfold Path. There are clear practices of mental training, to steady your mind and develop sila, develop restraint and morality and virtue, develop wisdom. Fine. You could look elsewhere to other kinds of psychological muscles, in effect, that you're trying to grow. It's really useful to have a sense of what are you trying to grow inside, and then work backwards from that to help yourself have experiences of it, which you then internalize by slowing it down, as I've said, feeling it in your body, and letting the experience really sink in. That's a beautiful path. Now, additionally, as you go through your day, deal with the bad. And second, turn to the good that is also true. And third, take in the good when you recognize it. So as you go through your day and you're solving problems and you're doing what you can for your country, notice what is also true. Often the little things. A flower is beautiful. Someone smiles at you. You hear children laughing. The clouds in the sky are so beautiful. Someone is sweeping the street, doing a little thing to help the world. There's so many things around us inside yourself. The good facts of your own good intentions. Those facts are real. Facts are true. You're not trying to avoid what is bad. You are actually growing the good inside to be stronger, to be more effective in dealing with what is bad. So as you go through your day, I call them ordinary jewels. These little facts that are actually true around you that we so often don't even notice. We step right over them. All the diamonds, all the rubies, all the sapphires that are on the ground, we just step right over them. We don't notice them. Nah, that's not good. They're there. They're there. And many of them are actually inside you. Why not notice them? And when you notice the good fact, let yourself have an appropriate good experience. Not just know intellectually, oh yeah, they like me. Oh yeah, I got that done. Oh yeah, I worked hard today. So what? Not that. Notice the good fact, let it become a good experience. Some, typically mild, but still genuine, still real experience of whatever. Somebody liked you, you accomplished something, maybe a feeling of relief. That's a bad thing, did not happen, you feared. Feel it. And then once you start to feel it, once you get that song going in the inner iPod, right? Or Spotify song list inside your mind, turn on the inner recorder. Slow down, receive it into yourself. You have earned this good experience that is based in facts. Why not take it into yourself? So, summing up, these are two really effective ways to grow more of the good inside and to appreciate more of the good in reality. And they are completely within someone's power. No one can stop you from doing it. And the worse that the world is around you, the more important it is to look for the good and to grow it inside yourself in these two ways.
Amazing, Rick. Yeah, what a pleasure.
Oh, good. And it's so practical.
and
I agree, it's common sense. We all know how to
yeah,
do this. I have definitely developed very systematic ways to doing it. People can find free on my website and in my
right.
social media and other things. Lots and lots of, details about all this. I did not invent these methods. We all know every child knows how to take in the good. The problem
Hmm.
is we just don't do it systematically. We we give up our power. And I think, oh no, the more powerless you are over your country, the more power you should exert over your own mind, right? Because that's where you do have influence.
That's excellent. I think that's what we all kind of need to hear as well, Rick. So that's why it's so important. And as you say, these are kind of like you could even say these are obvious truths, but obvious truths still need to be stated, and not just stated, but as you say, be recorded and to be listened to and to digest it again and again. I love the metaphor that you used about like listening to it, because I am definitely going to come back to this recording and listen to our conversation again, because yeah, it's been really rich, and I feel like there are a lot of like gems that I need to go back and digest and to appreciate. So, but let me appreciate you now
Thank you.
for being here and sharing your wisdom with
And for you,
us.
thank you for everything you do. You are on the front lines, and there are people in your country who are in even more, let's say, front lines. And I have such appreciation for what you are all doing at considerable risk to help make a better world. Thank you.
Perfect.
Many listeners know that in addition to running these podcast episodes, we also run a nonprofit, Better Burma, which carries out humanitarian projects across Myanmar. While we regularly post about current needs and proposals from groups on the ground, we also handle emergency requests, often in matters that are quite literally life or death. When those urgent requests come in, we have no time to conduct targeted fundraisers, as these funds are often needed within hours. So please consider helping us to maintain this emergency fund. We want to stress that literally any amount you can give allows us to respond more flexibly and effectively when disaster strikes. If you would like to join in our mission to support those in Myanmar who are being impacted by the military coup, we welcome your contribution in any form, currency, or transfer method. Your donation will go on to support a wide range of humanitarian and media missions, aiding those local communities who need it most. Donations are directed to such causes as the Civil Disobedience Movement, CDM, families of deceased victims, internally displaced person IDP camps, food for impoverished communities, military defection campaigns, undercover journalists, refugee camps, monasteries and nunneries, education initiatives, the purchasing of protective equipment and medical supplies, COVID relief, and more. We also make sure that our donation fund supports a diverse range of religious and ethnic groups across the country. We invite you to visit our website to learn more about past projects, as well as upcoming needs. You can give a general donation or earmark your contribution to a specific activity or project you would like to support, perhaps even something you heard about in this very episode. All of this humanitarian work is carried out by our nonprofit mission, Better Burma. Any donation you give on our Insight Myanmar website is directed towards this fund. Alternatively, you can also visit the Better Burma website, betterburma.org, and donate directly there. In either case, your donation goes to the same cause, and both websites accept credit card. You can also give via PayPal by going to paypal.me/betterburma. Additionally, we can take donations through Patreon, Venmo, GoFundMe, and Cash App. Simply search Better Burma on each platform and you'll find our account. You can also visit either website for specific links to these respective accounts or email us at info@betterburma.org. That's Better Burma, one word, spelled BETTERBURMA.org. If you would like to give it another way, please contact us. We also invite you to check out our range of handicrafts that are sourced from vulnerable artisan communities across Myanmar, available at alokacrafts.com. Any purchase will not only support these artisan communities, but also our nonprofit's wider mission. That's Aloka Crafts, spelled ALOKACRAFTS, one word, alokacrafts.com. Thank you so much for your kind consideration and support.
Oba yarananda dayananga yaranaya dayanam boda yaranam